Thank you, Scott. So I'll very quickly run through the agenda for today. It's really great to see everybody in the chat that's here. And I'm quite excited to be joining in today. So we're going to be hearing from two key speakers today. From Scottish Government, we're going to have Mary McPherson, who has come in at the very last minute, which is excellent, thank you. And we're going to hear from another parent, Nico Sadlowski. There will be a chance for questions later. We'll have a 15-minute break at well, it was supposed to be 11:30, but I have dyscalculia, so I can't work these times out now. So we'll just have to run with it. We'll have some workshops before lunch. Lunch will be an hour, and you can select which workshops you want to go to, but just to make a wee note, the Falling Off the Cliff workshop is only online. And if you're in the building, you can go upstairs for that, apparently. So I think that's the agenda very quickly. So Kieran, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit? Yeah, Kieran, tell us a little bit about why today is happening.
Oh, why today is happening? Well, as you see in this funky color of text, is to help people understand what young people's point of view is. So understanding what a young person's point of view is and all that like.
Do you know what? I've just realised I made a big mistake, Kieran, because we haven't properly introduced ourselves. Do you want to do that?
Yeah.
I'm like,
hello.
Oh my God,
hello, I'm the man in red, since I'm sit in a room with red. So my actual name's Kieran. So I would love to be in person, but unfortunately I have COVID. And it's not severe, it's minor.
Feeling a bit better?
Yeah, every day.
Excellent. Yeah. So I'm Amy. I'm a parent. I have a daughter who's 15, and she's going through this transition phase. So I'll be like a lot of the other parents here. I'm just starting out, just finding things out. I came to a conference online before, found out some excellent information, and we'll hear more about that later. But yeah, so Keenan, if you want to carry on telling us about why the day is happening. It's all about understanding a young person's point of view, you were saying, and having them at the centre of things.
Why is today happening? This is so my Wi-Fi doesn't crash on me.
I think we've talked before about young people making choices, Kieran.
Well, I think it's important for. Oh, yep.
Maybe.
Well, I think it's important.
So when we talk about choices, Kieran, what sort of choices are young people maybe needing to make at this stage?
I think it comes down to choices, what they want to be when they leave school, or what they want to be now. Then choices can mean a lot of other things, but I think when it comes to transition education-wise, I think choices means like where they want to do like after school, if it's like a college course or apprenticeship or anything they want to do. And I think we should always ask what does should my kid Johnny, what does my kid Johnny want to do? Not what I think Johnny should do. What does Johnny want to do? If Johnny wants to be at ours, let Johnny be at ours. I know it won't be easy, but by having the right support there, then it'll make half the work easier.
Absolutely. And choices can feel quite daunting at times, I think. And it's a whole new question to be asked, I think, for young people, that you're allowed to make a choice, that there are options, and it can be quite confusing, even as a parent as well. But you want to, as a parent, I really want to make sure that I am being the best parent that I can to support my child to make these choices. And I don't want my stuff to get in the way, but I absolutely want my child to have the same right as any other child, as everybody else. And I think probably that's something you would agree with, Kieran.
Yeah, that's where it goes with the sentence in blue, which says freedom to live where everyone's right. Like, I go by the phrase that freedom is everyone's right.
Definitely.
And I think, like, well as in COVID, it may have been difficult, but the freedom to choose, decide, then being, oh, I've got this label, I must have to do this. No, that's not true. Here's something. There's some skills I should really work on, because I'm not because I'm not the best cooker in the world. So
sure,
yeah, that's something I would probably learn more when I leave my parents' house. But it's not a bad thing if I don't have that skill right now. It means I'll get that skill maybe more later on when I'm about to leave. Because that's the thing with life skills. Life skills. You don't stop learning life skills once you leave education. It's a process we do in life. We like simple like from crossing the road, from doing like what's paying your bills and all that. So
yeah, and everybody takes a different route, and it happens at a different time, Kieran. And I think, you know, at this stage, it's so important. You have an idea of yourself, and you know what you like and what you want to do. But it is important to bring in these other people that are around you. How have you found that experience, Kieran? About bringing in other points of view.
other points of views, like my parents, they always want the best for me. Then and I know like sometimes people can overlook that, I think. But I was told by an organisation by Thistle, it was sort of the big plan, and like what we're talking about here is like some of the people got added here. What does the young person want to do and all that? And I think like back to the support, I think the support what matters, like the right support. If the right support is not there, it'll just fall apart.
That is, I would absolutely second you on that, Kieran. If the right support isn't there, things fall apart.
Don't be thinking, well, my Wi-Fi stopped working because it was yo.
And getting that right support means taking on board all these different sources of information and finding the best fit that matches a young person's personality. I feel that when the personality is recognized,
with the right support,
and heard, that's when you find your people, don't you? You find your crowd, you find where you fit in, you find your place, and it just all flows naturally.
So yeah. Support doesn't mean it has to be from a support worker. Sometimes it can be like a support could be like from a friend or a loved one.
Absolutely. So I can see Kieran, that the slides have moved on.
Yeah.
So we'll maybe just jump a wee bit to maybe you talking a wee bit more about the DIs. Because they have been doing excellent work.
Yeah. Yeah, where the DI is short for Divergent Influencers. Oh, I'm going to embarrass you all and say, oh, that's Abby right in the corner. We know who's an actor. There's Luke. There's Claire. There's Ruiz. There's Laura. There's me just selfishly looking at something that's not focused at the camera. There's Ryan. Oh, I know I feel bad. I grasped you all up now. Now you're on screen. Yeah. Aye. Oh, we skipped the oops. Oh, hey, hello, Claire again. Hear what the voice of report. Okay, this is the report. Before you get confused, this is the report we've gotten from the last past year or so. We wanted to find out what people experience of transitions. We wanted to know more about the transition, like other people experience. Like I was mentioning, we were talking about the other panel with the what young people point of view is like. And the report is to speak the truth. And yes, we can speak. When I mean speak the truth, we're being honest. There's no biases, there's no lies, there's no secret agenda behind it. It's honestly the truth. I think we got around 200 young people, and we interviewed them all, and we asked them like questions. And the report is talking what young people think. Aye, the risk report would be helpful to understand what young people are thinking. Not at this very moment, but a majority of what they're thinking. And see what was, and I think that what made this, I think, here more possible, because when we did that report, and this, like I said before, this report will help to create things like this in the future or any time like this. But I think if it wasn't for this report, this wouldn't be possible. And the one in purple says, please read the report and use it to make things better. You can download it from, sorry for my pronunciation, Scottish Transition Org UK.
Thank you so much, Kieran. That was brilliant. Mm-hmm. So we have Mary McPherson coming up to talk to us, but just to follow on very quickly before we do that, something else that has come out of the work that you've been doing with the Divergent influencers, sorry, Kieran. There are
don't worry, I have sometimes bad pronunciation it as well, so.
Okay. There are principles about transition that have come from this as well. And these principles are excellent. And I think we would love to see these principles become actual legislation, and there to ensure that every young person has an excellent transition and gets the best out of life. So, not to waste any more time, a wee quick introduction to Mary McPherson. She has come from Scottish Government. Since 2018, she has held the position of Deputy Director of the Children and Families Directorate. And her responsibilities cover improving health and well-being, promoting children and families' well-being, maternal and infant health, supporting disabled children and young people, supporting maternal and children's well-being, and Children and Young People's Improvement Collaborative. So I think she's an excellent person to talk about children's rights and creating positive futures. Over to Mary.
Thank you, Amy. I'm not sure if you can see me or hear me.
We can see you. I can see you and hear you.
We can also hear you too, Marie.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Well, thanks, Amy, for such a warm welcome, and good morning to everyone at Dynamic Earth and everyone who, like me, is joining the conference this morning online. I want to say I'm delighted the Scottish Government's been able to provide support to create the conference today. It's my absolute pleasure to open this event and say a few words to you all on behalf of the Minister for Children and Young People, Ms. Haughey, who unfortunately is not able to attend today. I would like to start by thanking the Divergent Influencers and members of ARC Scotland's Parent and Carer Network who've put together today's agenda and will be facilitating today. I noted on the invitation for today's conference, you're described as young people, parents and carers in Scotland with a passion for ensuring young people with additional support needs have a positive experience of transition to young adult life. And I'd like to say to all of you here today that the Scottish Government wholeheartedly shares that passion Supporting young people with additional support needs as they make the transition from school to adult life has never been more critical. The Scottish Government fully recognises the importance of good transitions planning and support in preparing children and young people for life beyond school. And as officials in the Scottish Government, we often hear transitions being described as falling off a cliff edge. And I can see from the agenda that that's one of the titles of a workshop this morning. And I know that many of you here today have had experience of the transition from school to young adult life and have experienced a whole range of challenges with that. And that's why the Scottish Government and our ministers are really keen to make a change in that experience, which will ensure children and young people are supported to have positive transitions and to live their best life, as young people say nowadays. My 16-year-old son certainly tells me that's what he would want. This government is committed to ensuring that all children's rights are respected, protected and fulfilled, and to ensuring that all children and young people grow up loved, safe and respected so that they realise their full potential. That's our national outcome. That's what we're aiming for, and it needs to be all children. I'm delighted to be surrounded in a virtual space, at least, by so many of you here today who share the Scottish Government's ambition to get it right for every child and young person. And I'd like to share with you a quote from Abby Purvis, who I know is a member of the Divergent Influencers, and I read this quote in their recent report. And Abby said, "Everyone has a story worth telling and a song worth singing, so let's give a voice to the people left in the wings." And I'd like to say that the Scottish Government and I could not agree more. The Scottish Government's vision is a Scotland where children's human rights are embedded in all aspects of society. A Scotland where policy, law and decision making takes account of children's rights and where all children and young people have a voice. In this parliamentary term, the Scottish Government will introduce Scotland's first national transitions to adulthood strategy to ensure that there is a joined up approach to supporting our disabled young people as they make transitions to adult life. The Minister for Equalities and Older People, Christina McKelvey, and Ms Haughey, Minister for Children and Young People, are jointly leading on the commitment to deliver this strategy. We recognise that this needs to be a cross-government effort. And we want to be certain that the strategy takes a holistic view of what's important to young people as they prepare to make the transition from school to young adult life, but that it's also accessible and relevant to them. So in order to do this, we're going to ensure that the voices of disabled children and young people are clearly heard in the development of the strategy and across all policies that impact their daily lives. We are based in Children and Families Directorate, but we connect out across the rest of the Scottish Government with that aim and that intention. We know that young people need to be at the heart of any change and will be integral to the design and development of the strategy in order to make it as effective as possible. Young people know better than I do, better than adults do who are involved in this, exactly what will make the difference. Across the Scottish Government, there are already a range of actions in place, so we're not starting from a blank slate. There's a range of things that we're doing which support the objective of improving young people's experiences of their transitions to adulthood. We wouldn't suggest in any way that all the things that could be done are being done, far from it. That's why we want to have a strategy. But there are some things I would want to draw to your attention that you may or may not be aware of. Some of you might know about the Principles into Practice trial programme, which the Scottish Government are supporting, and today's hosts, ARC Scotland, are delivering in partnership with us. It's a 2-year trial which began at the end of 2020, and it's taking place in 10 local authority areas across the country. The purpose of the trial is to improve lived experiences of young people who need additional support to make the transition to adult life, and to ensure young people are at the centre of all transition planning for their future. I'd like to give special thanks to everyone who's been involved in the trial so far, especially since we're all still navigating our way through the COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges that's brought us over the last 2 years. Your participation and feedback in this trial will help to test and shape ARC Scotland's Principles into Practice framework and associated resources, and help them bring those to completion. They then, we hope, will be useful tools in supporting young people in the future as they transition from school to young adult life. You might be aware that the Scottish Government continues to support the Independent Living Fund's Scotland's Transition Fund, which is there to assist young disabled people to make a smoother transition from childhood into adulthood by promoting independence, community participation, social inclusion and confidence. The Scottish Government is also determined to improve the educational experiences of all children with additional support needs. Some of you may have heard of Angela Morgan's independent review of additional support for learning. It set a clear direction for improvement in how to best support children and young people to flourish in learning and beyond, including in planning and in transition. An updated action plan and progress report was published back in November last year, and it highlighted 8 actions that have been fully completed within the first year of that action plan. The vast majority of the other actions are ongoing, on track, and a further updated action plan will be published in spring this year. As well as seeking to improve the experiences of children and young people whilst at school, the Scottish Government is also determined to improve their experiences when they leave school. For example, we know that for some disabled children and young people, it can be a real challenge to enter and sustain employment. The Scottish Government's ambition to at least halve the disability employment gap by 2038 was set out in a Fairer Scotland for Disabled People Employment Action Plan, which we published back in December 2018. This action plan included young people in transitions as one of its 3 key themes. We're working with partners, including disabled people's organisations, their members and others, to understand the impact of COVID-19 and the pandemic on disabled people within the workforce and those seeking employment. We've set up a short life working group co-chaired by Glasgow Disability Alliance, and the purpose of that group is to review, refresh and co-produce with disabled people our employment action plan, with a view to publishing the revised, refreshed version again in spring this year. This year, we've also committed up to £70 million through the Young Persons Guarantee. And the aim of that money is to give every 16 to 24-year-old access to the opportunity of a job, apprenticeship, further or higher education, training programme, or formal volunteering placement. There's also a focus on supporting those who face additional barriers, including disabled young people. Our recent budget announcement of an additional investment of £45 million in 2022-23 for the Young Persons Guarantee shows that the Scottish Government is continually committed to supporting young people in Scotland towards employment, learning and training opportunities. And with all that work in mind, I think the Minister would want me to express on her behalf her heartfelt thanks to everyone here today who I know have been working tirelessly on improving the transitions experience. And especially those of you who've been willing to open up and share your own experiences in order to drive forward positive change for others. And I would like to particularly acknowledge the fantastic group of young people who many of you will know collectively as the Divergent Influencers. I know this group have undertaken a huge amount of work in the past year and most recently published their consultation report about young people's experiences of transitioning to young adult life. It's this kind of meaningful engagement and consultation which will ensure we effect real change and underpin the policies and guidance designed to support our young people. Because, to end on a final quote from one of the Divergent Influencers, I want to just get this quote right. No one knows what makes a good transition better than those who've been there, done it, and got the t-shirt. Again, I wholeheartedly agree. I'm sorry I can't stay and join you for the rest of the conference, but I know many of my colleagues are here with you for the whole day. I wish you a really enjoyable day and productive day, and I look forward to hearing more about the outcomes. And me and the rest of my colleagues look forward to working with you all on the development of the National Transitions to Adulthood Strategy to ensure that transitions are experienced by every young person in Scotland as positive, supportive, and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary.
You're welcome. You were smashing.
Yeah,
But smash means you're good, so you did a good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm not the best person when it comes to compliments, so.
I think you're the ideal person, Kieran. If it's sounding good to you, that's a good benchmark.
High praise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kieran.
Thanks very much again, Mary. And it's so encouraging to hear that at the highest level, the work of the Transitions Forum, of the Divergent Influencers, is being heard. It's just, this is what it has to keep coming back to, actually hearing what real experience is like, because none of our lives just fit into little pockets, little brackets, this stage, that stage. You want someone to have a smooth pathway right through. It's not just one isolated transition. And I think that was coming through in some of the comments in the chat as well. But Kieran, we have to move on. So I think, would you like to introduce...
about the spectrum of light there.
Would you like to introduce the next speaker?
Nico. A parent and author. Nico is a father of 3 children, co-parent, partner, blogger, publisher, author, raised by great parents in Poland and moved to UK in 2005. After publishing his book, The A Word, Poland, he became regular speaker conference about autism, exploring the subject. He used to work as a father-child well-being worker for Scottish first sector of the organisation. Was recently diagnosed with ASD. Nico's is a mental health advocate and person who loves tattoo in Scotland.
Thank you very much for amazing invitation. Introduction, I mean, sorry guys, I've been so stressed and I've never been stressed more in my life than today. That's my actually officially first talk in English. I don't have a Facebook or anything like that. I've just got notes just in case if I gonna stumble upon some difficulties. So basically, yeah, thank you very much for introduction. My name is Nico. I'm an author. I'm a parent, co-parent. You know, I used to work in special schools with Ruth. I used to work for third sector organization as Kieran said, as a father-child wellbeing worker. And now I had a change of career and I work in the night shift in the warehouse because sometimes that's what you have to do. And can I have a first slide? Sorry, guys. So yeah, on the first slide, it's going to be a little puppy, little pup of Labrador. And I just want to say to you guys, you know, something nice, that's nice. And I already told you something about me because I want you guys to remember me as a nice puppy, you know. So yeah, and can I get next slide then? Yeah, obviously, when our children are born and we finding out about any disability, like my son. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention that I've got 3 children. My son, one of my sons is 16. My second son is 13. He's got autism and development delay, and he's attending now Perlick Park School. And I've got an amazing baby daughter. She's 10 now, and she's in Gaelic school in Edinburgh. so she can talk to me and I will not understand because she's fluently now speaking Gallic language, and so basically when children are born and we're finding out in diagnosis, like we did, we struggled. We didn't know where to go. We didn't know what to do. And my son was growing up. I was like a bit of like a detective. I was learning about himself. How he's responding to the world. Obviously, he's responding totally differently than my other children. And yeah, I've been listening to him, observing. I try to protect him as much. We as a parents always do that. And it got to the point he's now 13 and now he's discovering himself, and he's trying to explore the world. And as much I want to protect him, I realize that I have to basically let him explore, and sometimes it's hard because I know he's going to get burned, as he's going to do his own stuff. Now he's into doing colleges on the laptop, and he's merging pictures of superheroes, Disney superheroes. It's amazing. I don't know how he does it. Even I know some IT stuff, but he's much better than I am, and as a parent, I learned that we have to trust the God, because as a professional, I wanted always to have this, to talk to people and I'm always telling people, listen, you know your child best, you know what is best for your children, and especially with my son, he's nonverbal, he's as I mentioned, he's got development delay, and on top of that, autism. He's never going to be independent, and as much I wanted as a parent to protect him and teach him everything. Now he's got to the age that he's his hormones playing up and not playing up. His hormones are basically happening, and I ask myself question, when I'm trying to not force him to do stuff, but basically, when I'm trying to tell him, do this, can you do that, and he was refusing. And I'm just realizing that if he would be an average teenager, he would tell me, Dad, go away, leave me alone. And I have to remember that asking him of doing stuff, I have to sometimes say to myself, Nico, he's teenager, just leave him alone, leave him be. And that's very important for us as a parents to take a step back. And it's hard because we always want to protect our children. We always want to be there for them, and I learned recently even more and more that, my son is wearing hoodie now and he doesn't want to take it off. And it's just those small things, I have to remember that he is a teenager now. Even he's non-verbal, even he's not communicating verbally with me, but he's communicating in many other ways. I have to remember to give him his own space and basically try to understand that he is a teenager. So can I get to the next slide, please? Now I would like to talk about transition and co-parenting. We recently, 6 years ago, we decided to basically split up with the mother of my children. And obviously, that was difficult. That is always the difficult time for our children, but especially for children with additional support needs, because how do you explain to a child, what's going to happen now? And I believe, as much there is difficult, if you've got two adults who wants to basically look forward and focus on children, it's doable. What we did, and obviously we sat down with our children and we started talking to them, that they're going to have two different homes now, and we both love them as much, as before, and that's important. Next step, what we did when I moved out and I rented my own property, I asked my ex-partner to basically come over with children to visit me for coffee, first time. So they knew that the new house is approved by mom as well, So she came in and we sat down, we had tea and we had the chat. I showed them their own room, I said, look guys, you see that's your room, and we're gonna have a family over here as well. So now, you're gonna have two houses, My son, obviously, I don't know how he's understanding that and how he did understand, but he's happy, and he was happy in the beginning. In the beginning, we had this arrangement that children were staying with me Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and weekends, and as much I love that stuff, I have to as well look into my children's well-being and being child focused, and and that was happening for I think 4 years. I was traveling a lot back and forth, you know, but I realized my children told me that we are tired. You know, obviously they have to wake up early to get to mom's and go to school in the weekdays. And, you know, my heart was bleeding, but I had to understand and I had to make this decision that, okay, I do understand you're tired. At the same time, I want to spend time with you guys. And, you know, and what we decided to do that I now visiting my children on Tuesdays and Thursdays instead of they coming to me, you know, and I know not everyone is in this position, not everyone can do that, but I believe looking into, you know, children approach into putting children in the center of everything, it's very doable. You know, we're sharing holidays, like in Scotland, we've got February break, October break, 6 weeks of summer holidays. So I'm taking always children first 2 weeks on holidays. Mom takes them next 2 weeks. I'm taking them again 1 week, and she's taking them 1 week every second year. We're swapping February and October holidays. So last year I had children February and October. This year my children stayed with mom. You know, so I mean. As I wrote in this slide, you know, this is so important to have this child-centered approach, you know, because as much I want to see my children every day, you know, I almost seeing my children every day. We're calling each other. They've got always my number on speed dial, you know. What we do as well when it comes to like shopping for clothing and stuff like this, you know, I'm driving, I've got the car. Mom doesn't have a car and she doesn't drive, so I'm offering, and you know, we're going always away to you know, to the shopping centers, buy clothing and stuff like that. And it's important that, you know, I believe my children are feeling that we listening to them, you know, that their voices are heard, and I think that's the most important thing in this, you know. Sorry, I need to grab myself a glass of water. Yeah, so oops. And as I mentioned, you know, it's not easy because sometimes relationships, especially in the beginning when you're breaking up and everything is fresh, you know, it is difficult to think clearly and to have children in the middle of it, you know, and thinking about children. But it's I just want to say it's doable. I wrote myself over here, slow down, and over here, breathe, you know, because I'm just you know, like machine gun sometimes. So I explained what steps we took and, you know, the transition to make this transition more acceptable. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, and this I'm a blogger as well, and recently I asked my followers about death and about, you know, having disabled children and, you know, children with autism, how they think about the future, and most of the responses were pretty sad because we are scared, and I thought it's just me, and, you know, thinking about almost every day about what's going to happen with my son when I will be gone and when mom will be gone, and unfortunately, you know, we have this thing with these thoughts all the time, almost every day, you know, and as much, you know, I would like to think that my other children will look after my son. At the same time, I don't want them to take this responsibility and take this burden because, you know, they have a right to get on with their lives, you know, to travel. If my daughter will say, I want to move to States or to Canada or wherever, you know, it's her choice, and I have to accept that. That's why, you know, for us as a parents, this way of thinking, this worrying, constantly worrying, it's got huge impact on our mental health. And you know, I discovered that obviously I would love that everyone would have access to a psychologist or therapist, because that's important. You know, we live in the world that we've got so much stress, our mental health getting bombarded every day, and you know, and access to mental health support would be fantastic. But, you know, like I struggled with my mental health some time ago, you know, I had depression and I'm still having anxiety, lifelong anxiety. And, you know, I've been waiting for any kind of support, like 9 months, you know, for counseling and stuff like that. So, you know, if on top of that, you know, you've got stressful life with your children and you know, money worries and stuff like that, you know, I would love to think that, you know, we're gonna focus in the future on mental health and supporting families with mental health, you know, because that's huge burden. And you know, I mean, it's scary thinking like, what's going to happen to my son after I will be gone? What's going to happen to my son? How he will live and where he will live? You know, and many families, many parents thinking about that constantly. You know, because we worry. We parents, we love our children and we want them to thrive, to be happy. You know, and as well, the other thing is like, I'm always worrying how my son will react of me being gone and mom being gone, and how to explain that to him, you know, because obviously he's nonverbal, he's got development delay on top of that, and some of our children got difficulties to understand stuff, you know, and you know, especially nowadays that we've got war in Europe, you know, so I would like to think that will stop soon. But anyway, you know, we as parents of children with additional needs, I believe we worry extra, you know, and I said to my friends that when I'm going to be old, please take me out for coffee or for pints and tell me that everything's going to be okay, and you know, make us smile, because that's important. You know, sometimes we're living in this bubble. And I remember when my son was diagnosed, that was ages ago now, you know, he's 13, so that was like probably 10 years ago. You know, obviously autism was something new for me, and I was discovering it. I was reading about it. I was knocking into different doors, different charities, and try to get some support. And I remember lots of my friends, I thought that they were friends, they left because they couldn't face me, and they said, Nico, you're talking about autism, about disability constantly, and we're tired of that. And obviously now I know that they weren't my real friends, and you know, we've been like that. I think many parents been like that, because obviously we're focusing on one thing, and who wouldn't focus on your own child, you know, and on well-being of your child, and worried. And now, you know, all my friends know that I would like them to support me, to make me smile, so basically they understand that I'm worrying about stuff every day, that, you know, especially when my son became a teenager, you know, he's challenging, he's refusing to do stuff, he's refusing to leave the car when I have to go to work, you know, and it's okay. It's okay. This is his way of communicating with me. And I just said to my friends, you know, look, guys, you know, maybe life is sometimes difficult for all of us, but I want you to remember that I demand your support, and I demand your jokes and to make me feel better, you know. Oh my gosh, that's help us to stay mentally healthy, support us, make us smile. And the bottom is, and take us for a pint, you know. So, so yeah, can I have the next slide? So basically, I wrote. Yeah, I just want to at the end just show you my book. I wrote the book about our journey through my son's autism diagnosis from father's perspective. You know, I was lucky enough that Stuart Cosgrove was reading the book, and he sent me an email. And the A word is available in English, and I'm on Amazon. Breakup Topography, which is book which we wrote about our co-parenting, is not available in English, unfortunately, so you have to learn Polish now. And what can I say? I can say thank you very much. I hope I was helpful in any way. Thank you very much, guys. Now is the break, isn't it?
So I don't know who can hear who at the moment.
We can hear you, Amy.
Oh, okay.
Loud is clear.
I think probably Kieran and I would just, and on behalf of everybody, Nico, that was, you were saying you didn't know if that was helpful. That was absolutely amazing. And thank you so much. It was so powerful to hear your words.
Thank you very much.
And
Yeah.
so I think we're almost back on track with time. So we did say we would have a break, but we would have a chance for questions. And really, this is the time for everyone to share. There were things coming up in the chat there about positive destinations and not really knowing, not believing that there are any. And unmet need. Somebody mentioned something about unmet need, and yes, let's open it up to the audience, I think, and find out.
Any questions? Any questions in the room?
Oh, I was curious, right? I know I'm one of the panelists. I was going to ask, was your book book inspired out what? Because there's a TV show called The A Word. I wondered if there was like any connection with that.
No, that was a series, the A Word, isn't it? But a book was written before that, you know. So
I was wondering if your
my
book was
written,
inspired by
probably
the.
first published was I think 7 years ago, back in Poland. So that was no. Lots of people asking me this question, but no, it's not related at all. I can always say that, you know, there's a TV series, you know, after my book, you know, but it's not true.
I think I was really picking up, Nico, on just the absolute volume of stuff that we have to coordinate as parents. And this is something that's come out with the principals as well, that really there needs to be identified someone that can do that job. And it's not just us, because at this stage, we're so exhausted as parents, as carers. You've already been through a couple of transitions, you know, in education, certainly from nursery to primary, from primary to secondary, quite possibly not had the best experience, still trying to tie up things from before, and your head is just absolutely all over the place as a parent. It is so exhausting. And I can see how some of the information that came out of the work that the forum have been doing, I'm sure I read that about 18, 19 years old, young people have a dip in their happiness. And I think, yeah, why? Of course they do, because they're not being heard properly, they're not getting that support. And the people that are closest to them, their families, their parents, are at their wits' end probably. And just when you're really, really wanting to give it your best effort, that's when you're the most exhausted, and it's so confusing. And it's just easier to go with what's been done before, and you become the person you don't want to be. Somebody said to me recently, "Oh, Amy, it's great when you speak up and you speak out, you're such a warrior." And I thought, I don't want to be a warrior. I don't like it. I want to be able to collaborate, not be in conflict.
Yeah,
just having a quick look at what's in the chat as well, sorry.
Especially nowadays with COVID, you know, I can tell you how difficult that was for my son, you know, because he was going to school. He was happy after he wasn't going to school, after he was going back to school again. And at the end, you know, he's still is very confused, and he's not really happy. He's attending school every day, fortunately for us, but he's not happy to go there. And I bet he doesn't understand why, because it's hard to explain to your children, you know, why now it's okay to stay home in pajamas for 6 months. And you know, and before that was okay, now it's not okay, you know, so it's confusing, you know.
Yeah. In this past week, Nico, I've you know, it's just the irony of it. So going to medical appointments with my daughter, some services are saying, "Oh, that's you out of paediatric services now," and other services are saying, "Oh, we've just had a referral, but it's come through to the adult one. You need to go back." I don't know what's happening. I don't know which is which. We got invited to an appointment. We didn't even know what it was for. It was so confusing. She's also making choices at school, and a letter came home to me, obviously, and I read all about it, all the S4 choices, but there wasn't any mention of choices that the class for additional support needs are making. And it makes you feel that little bit of shame, because you know that there are guidelines out there, there is legislation out there, but it doesn't always seem to be getting applied. And when you have to constantly say, "Oh, what about me? What about my child?" That's when you think there's this awkwardness that suddenly the onus is put on us to sort out, and it shouldn't be that way. And I think if we feel like that as adults, how the heck do young people feel about it? It must be so hard.
Absolutely.
Nico,
Yes.
there's a question for you that's come into the chat, and it's from Susan. And she says, you've talked about a child-centered approach and using a child-centered approach in your parenting. What's your experience of working with professionals? Do they use the same child-centered approach in your experience, or is that something that you could maybe be improved or changed?
I mean, fortunately, I was fortunate enough to work with one of the biggest organizations in Edinburgh. You know, I was supporting dads. I mean, I was supporting whole families, but through the dads, you know, supporting the dads. And yeah, I mean, I think the last few years, there's a huge shift. You know, I remember when I started, you know, and I was studying and I was in my placements, you know, I'm an early years practitioner. And that was still a bit, you know, I felt like could be done more, you know, could be better. But now I think, and social work, third sector organization, we focusing on child-centered approach. And I think that's absolutely amazing. You know, I know it is difficult, especially in special education, you know, when you've got lots of children and those children got different needs and you know, you've got 12 children in the class and you know, it is difficult, you know, but I believe we're doing an amazing job as a society supporting our children. It always can be improved and obviously it's hard, you know, because we're just learning about our children growing up, and we are like detectives, you know, as a parents, sometimes as a professionals too. We're trying to figure out our children want to do, what they're telling us, you know, what's the response, because obviously behavior always tell the story, and you know, if child is non-verbal, there's always other ways of communicating. So yeah, I believe especially Edinburgh, you know, I cannot say anywhere else, but Edinburgh it's leading in this, you know, of child-centered approach.
Thank you, Nico. There's just going to be one final question from the room as we move into a very quick break. It's going to be, but Luke?
You've spoken about co-parenting and things, coming as someone who's grown up with a sibling who has autism and a learning delay also, and has co-parents. That works, and the way that you talk about the child-led approach is really important, and I'm seeing that from personal experience, and kind of giving that feedback that like what you're doing is right in the view of somebody who's been through it. And I just thought it was something that was really important to highlight, because I don't know how often you actually hear that from people who aren't maybe parents and carers.
I mean, you know, it's, as I said, sometimes the relationships are so difficult, and you know, breakups are horrible sometimes, and it's not easy. You know, I'm lucky because mother of my children, you know, she really wants me to be involved, and I want to be involved no matter what. And you know, I've got new partner, she's got someone, and you know, it's we're still focusing on children, you know, and in the beginning, when everything was so raw, it was difficult, you know, because you're getting annoyed about stuff, you know, and you know, I was upset because why do I have to move away and stuff like that, you know. We built this home together after 11 years, but each situation is different, family dynamics are different, but you know, I believe if we all gonna look into our children and try to protect, and obviously I do understand if it's, you know, violence at home, there's no questions about it, you know, but if both parents are you know, trying to do what's best for children, it's absolutely doable, but sometimes we just have to grow up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nico. Let's get a round of applause for Nico. That was fantastic.